I want to bring Kevin Green, senior markets correspondent, right away to help set up the action today. All right, KG, no fireworks in Washington. Kenny Polcari put it this way. He said, what if President Trump brings an end to this war? Would it spark a rally? He doesn't think so. And it essentially is background noise. Maybe it could produce some short-term euphoria. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're looking at the composition of the S&P 500, obviously we know that there is a concentration when it comes to technology and communication services. And you have to think to yourself, how much are those companies really impacted by this Russia-Ukraine conflict? And you know, it's not really that much here. Now, you could see maybe some effects with certain other companies, especially if you're looking at materials and industrial names. But overall, it seems like the equity market is really trying to focus on Jackson Hole coming up, as well as the Fed cut in September. Now, obviously, we did not see any type of major fireworks yesterday, but it does appear, on the surface at least, that we are seeing some progress, that a resolution to this matter can be had here. Obviously, we saw the meeting with President Trump and Vladimir Zelensky yesterday. There was also some other members of the EU that were in attendance, and they really stressed the fact that they would like to see peace within this conflict, but also security guarantees. And that's where we are seeing maybe a little bit of a development here. If you're talking about the equity market itself and just spending and these deals that are taking place, it appears that the United States is going to continue to provide support to Ukraine, but also selling defense arms to Ukraine, around $100 billion worth. That's going to be financed by Europe. So maybe some of these defense names today catch a little bit of a bid off of that particular structure, but we are expecting more developments over the next couple of weeks. They're hoping that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin can meet, and then potentially the finalized trilateral meeting between President Trump, Vladimir Zelensky, and Vladimir Putin. So we'll see if that really does develop. If you're kind of looking at some of the military actions from Russia yesterday, it was actually fairly aggressive. So even though we have this kind of back and forth commentary going on right now, the conflict continues to rage on here. So we'll keep our eye out on it. The energy markets, for the most part, have been stabilized. We haven't seen any type of major push there. The commodity markets, if you're looking at grains, has not seen a significant push. So let's say that there is some progress to be had here, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a really strong catalyst for the equity markets to move higher at this point. In fact, once again, we have some other factors, some economic data, as well as the Fed meetings that are going to be coming up here that probably take precedent over this matter.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think you make a great point about certain sectors you may see impact, like, for instance, aerospace and defense, where we've seen some impact already. Maybe we will potentially see some selling if there is a peace agreement that comes up off of this. Let's take a look at some of the individual movers that I know you're across. Intel shares catching a bid this morning. Tell us a little bit about the backstory here. It seems like there's a deal coming to the surface with SoftBank. What do you know?
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on with Intel. It's been a very volatile name over the last couple of trading sessions here. So there is reports that SoftBank is looking to actually invest into Intel to pay around $23 a share for the Intel stock at this point. So that obviously is on the back of the United States potentially investing around 10% share within Intel. That deal was kind of announced, or the comments around that deal kind of came out last week, which is why you saw some enthusiasm within this name here. So once again, a lot of churn here, maybe some dollars from some of these major institutions going into Intel in order to try to support the business, as well as trying to build out their foundry business at scale in order for it to be able to take on some of the volume from these other chip makers here, chip designers like an NVIDIA and others within this space here. So the shares are up in pre-market trading. Let's see if it's going to be able to sustain and break above that $25 level. That has been a key area of resistance over the last couple of months here. And we'll see if that's going to be able to move through here. But once again, additional investment, this is exactly what you'd like to see if you are a shareholder. And maybe we do see others try to step into this space in order to try to solidify or try to bulk up the cash reserves for Intel in order for them to be able to execute on some of this design and fab build out within Ohio, which has been very difficult. They have a processing model that really has not been able to get up to scale, and they're not really able to get external customers right now to their liking. So that's really the goal, is to try to ramp this up as much as possible. And we'll see if the United States government also takes any other actions in order to encourage other businesses to utilize their services and resources.
Okay, speaking of things that investors like, Palo Alto, those shares moving higher in the pre-market off the back of its latest quarterly results. Take us through some of your takeaways here, KG.
Yeah, you're seeing the shares up about 6% in the session here, beating both on the top and bottom line. When you're looking at the revenue, that came in at $2.54 billion. She was looking for about $2.5 billion. That's around a 16% increase on a year-over-year basis. And the adjusted earnings per share came in at 95 cents. Street was looking for 88 cents. Their guidance was also better than expected if you're looking at Q1 fiscal year 2026 guidance on both top line and bottom line, as well as the fiscal year guidance for both for top line and bottom line actually exceed the Street's expectations. The remaining performance obligations, their guidance moving forward here, up to $15.4 billion on the low end to $15.5 billion. Street was looking for $15.07 billion. So that's actually a good sign. That remaining performance obligations really kind of signifies the potential revenues that could be realized by the company within the next 12 to 16 months or so. And they are still seeing demand out there. And then they also talked about the CyberArk acquisition, which did draw the shares down a bit. Obviously, they're leveraging capital in order to obtain this business, but the CEO was very optimistic on the conference call that over time it's going to be a really strong growth strategy, and they're going to find some synergies between both of these companies. So overall, a really good report. Once again, up around 6%. Let's see if the shares are going to be able to hold here, or maybe you get some buyers to step in because it is trading relatively cheap compared to some of its peers out there right now.
That's exactly what I was going to point out, because we know it's been an underperformer in the group year to date, underperformer compared to the S&P 500. So Palo Alto really needed this win. So that looks good. And it does line up with some of the analysts' commentary that I've seen recently where they were very constructive on this. So, maybe they saw this coming. What else are you seeing in terms of analyst activity around this one, KG?
Oh, there's a bunch that's actually taking place early on this morning. I saw a couple of price adjustments to the upside. You have, obviously, Rosenblatt Securities raising their price target up to $225. That's up from $215. Truist Securities also raising their price target up to $220. That's up from $205 here. And BMO, once again, raising it to $225, up from $217. So you are seeing kind of an area of resistance that these analysts are looking at right now. Obviously, they're a little bit more optimistic on the company, given the fact that we have seen some very strong guidance and good commentary, and that has been, I wouldn't say a concern, but this company here, when you talk about Palo Alto Networks, their leadership team is very forthright when it comes to the demand that they are seeing, and very honest when it comes to the overall business itself. So sometimes it can be very difficult within an earnings announcement in order to get some enthusiasm, just because they're a little bit more conservative in their guidance moving forward. And I think a lot of these analysts are recognizing that if this is a conservative guide, which once again beat the Street's expectations, then maybe they're going to be able to outperform next quarter and maybe the next couple of quarters, for that matter.
Great points. And then, KG, let's talk about your targets on the S&P 500 today, to the upside and downside, especially given the really range-bound action that we've been seeing to start out this week. What are you looking at?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of compression, Diane. You could actually see that in the options flow this morning. To the upside, 64.70 has been a target area. We are seeing some flows there on the call side, and on the put side, 64.40, which kind of aligns with what we've seen as an area of support since Tuesday of last week. So let's see if we can actually break out of this range. Volatility has been very low as well, and that can lead to these compressed markets. But we will have VIX options expiration tomorrow. VIX options probably will carry the weight of the options flows today on the radar, and that readjustment when it comes to positioning could also kind of create volatility, go up a little bit, and also could gyrate these markets a little bit more.
All right, thank you, KG. That's our Kevin Gray, senior markets correspondent, with a look across Palo Alto and your targets for today.